Growing up, I always played countless games. I still do. It's not like I quit gaming, but I feel like I could make my own type of game. My own IP that one day I would like to see turn into an actual video game, but for now would be as a little concept exercise for me to, well, get better at art. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I decided that I'm gonna design my own game. But first, what type of game do I wanna make? When it comes to making a game, I want my video game to actually be something I would play. Something like a MMORPG, a first-person shooter, a hero shooter, or a platformer. Those are the games that really call my attention most of the time. So I would like to make something that I personally would play. But let's be honest, if I was to make a hero shooter, the market's already saturated. Look at Concord. Concord failed miserably. So I wanted to make a game that personally I would play and would be unique. That's why I decided on a platformer RPG. I know, give me a second, let me explain. I feel like the story that I want to tell is encapsulated the best in this format, an MMORPG with a little bit of a platformer gimmick to it. So that's what I decided to, well, do. But now, character designs. The hard part. What type of story do I want to tell? When designing a character, I like to have this little rough idea of what I want for my character to look like. So, I had this theme. The theme of a robot experiencing nature for the very first time. Yes, you heard me right. A robot experiencing nature for the very first time. There's a lot of things that you can do with that just idea, or at least that prompt. So, I wanted to give my own little crack at it and see what I could do. Which eventually led me to, well, having 9 different designs for a robot. I had multiple ideas, some better than others, but I really liked the idea of a robot cat. I decided to call him RoboCat. After designing what RoboCat was gonna look like, I needed to find out the color palette. So I tried multiple different colors. Monochromatic, I even went with a Game Boy type color, so it looked, or more resembled like the Game Boy. But then my friend Skynex suggested this color palette, which I immediately fell in love with. So I added my own little spin to it as well, adding little highlights to the arms, or I'm sorry, the legs, and there we go. Now, what's the deal with RoboCat? Meet Neonexus. Humanity's greatest creation, the city in the sky, a metropolis that's brimming with energy, where humanity no longer lives in the surface, but instead took to the skies, and at its core is the crystal, the one single source of energy for the entire city, all created by one man. His name is Dr. Nolan Weiss. With the power of him and his son, they managed to build the first ever sentient robot, which their creativity spiraled, making the Neonexus the next step for humanity, the utopia humanity wished for, until the crystal started running out of energy. Now, with the task of finding a new source, RoboCat sets out to explore nature. Equipped with the ability to go on land, water, or even lava, RoboCat is now tasked by humanity to find a new source of energy. So what do you guys think? Personally, I really do like this idea. I am really happy with it. But what would the gameplay actually look like? In the game, I want at least 5 worlds. So let me show you what I designed for the first world. Acorn Fields. When I mean that I wanted to have this game look like a platformer, this is what I mean. I took a lot of heavy inspiration from, well, Nintendo and Mario, so this is Acorn Fields. I like to imagine that for the first world, at least there's 2 bosses. I wanted to show as many gimmicks as possible, so it introduces little things to the actual player without really telling them a lot or overwhelming them. So let's start with the beginning of the map. RoboCat will jump off from the city and land right at the beginning of the map. so that's why there's a crater. After that, RoboCat will make his way down, and you can either go 2 different paths, into the woods or into a cave, or you can also encounter the monsters on the side. I like to imagine that the monsters on the side would start like a little, I guess, encounter, and you fight and you get XP. That's the whole RPG aspect to it. But besides that, you can either go into the actual cave or into the woods. By going into the woods, you start encountering weird little creatures, weird monsters that will haunt you around the platformer area, and eventually you'll find their village. They're called Sprout Guards. After making your way through the entire woods, you'll eventually end up and be able to actually go into their village. Once you end up inside the village, you can buy objects like tools or items or power-ups, kind of how in Super Mario you could just, well, play a mini game for them. I would like to have like a currency system, if so the actual player would go and encounter the monsters on the side, or even just completing levels would give you currency. Once inside the market, you'll start hearing little rumors and whispers about how there's a bear that keeps terrorizing their entire village. From those rumors, the player would be forced into going to actually fight the first boss. Once you go to the castle, you'll encounter a new effect, slow or sticky. Since his whole gimmick is that he's covered in honey, the fight will actually take a little bit longer than normal. Your attacks will be duller because you can't really hit through the honey. It'll be a lot harder for you to encounter him. I also like to imagine that he'll just like throw little lumps of like honey at you and you have to dodge them and jump over them. I would imagine that the gameplay is a lot like the Super Mario Odyssey in the 3D aspect, and then have like once you about to hit him, it's more into the RPG aspect of it, where it just goes into turn-based and then you go back into like actually fighting him, kind of like Undertale, where you can pick an action and then go and fucking dodge everything. After the boss battle, you can kind of just grind the monsters around the area, like here, over there, over here. Like, it's pretty simple to just grind and fight them. And then finally, once you hit to this point, you get to encounter the big boss, the actual main boss of this entire level. A Sprout soldier that was genetically enhanced by the own people that made RoboCat. The only gimmick with this battle is that he will just be extremely strong. So if you take a single hit, you're just basically fucked. You take a lot of damage. So the only gimmick around it is just to not take any damage. You gotta be really good and quick on your feet whenever it's your turn to just dodge and play the actual platformer aspect. But there is a weak point. You have to hit his head. He's like cracking on the top of his head, so you have to continuously hit his weak point by climbing up him. Whenever he hits the ground and misses, he'll actually get his spear like stuck on there, so you just gotta climb it and hit him on the back of the head with your attack. I wanted this boss fight to be the most like platformer like compared to the other one where it's more MMORPG type, so my only gimmick that I thought of was something like that. After the fight, you really find out that there's nothing here. There's no energy source here, so you just have to move on to the next level, which that brings me to level 2. Level 2. I could go into a little rant like I did for the first world, but now that you understand how this game would work, I will just give you the little cliff notes since it'll just be repeating myself over and over again. The second level is actually called Coral Cavern. This entire level might appear like it's actually on the surface, but in reality, it's under the water. Everything is under the water. There's random species that completely morphed and evolved and mutated over time, so that's why there's like chickens or fishes hatching out of eggs, stuff like that. Once you arrive to Coral Caverns, the first level that you actually encounter is the city. The one place that you can actually buy and explore. I imagine that it's more like, I guess Splatoon, where you can just go to shop and buy stuff. Like, it's the only place that is friendly at first. But as soon as you leave, you can either go down to 3-4 different routes. After the city, you get to go and explore around multiple different areas. There's a pollution area, there's also a boss fight, there's a treasure area where if you beat each one of these levels you get rewarded with something. So for like example, the treasure, you'll get more money obviously, but then like for the pollution, you'll actually just get abilities or like armor or something, or you can like get crafting materials and see if you can like upgrade yourself. Now moving on, you actually get to explore 3 different paths after those. Those other 3 paths are the claw, the squid, and the geysers. Either one is just a level. The squid is a boss fight, the claw is just exploring an ancient claw that was abandoned, and the geysers is just an extra level just for the player to do more and actually get XP and currency. And finally, the last boss is actually the serpent around the entire like waterfall. That boss is like the strongest boss so far. It's supposed to have like a really big gap or level gap, and after beating it, it doesn't really have anything. Like as well, you have to go to the next world, which is world number 3. Welcome. I call this place Rocky Valley. Yeah, I could have been a little creative on the name, a little bit more creative at least, but there's a lot of things still that are pretty goofy around here, so let me show you. So the player first starts off right here. I call this just the mushroom forest. This is just a place where you can actually encounter and buy things, kind of like a checkpoint like I've been doing for the other worlds. It's mostly just for you to get a gist of like the, I guess, area around. So this area is just open, you buy stuff, and then you just leave. And then you go to the second level. I imagine this level is more underground, so you'll actually have to use like a flashlight. So give a little new gimmick into the game and spice it up a little bit compared to just going from platformer, then RPG boss fight, and then a platformer again. Like I think it'll be more interesting if you have to have like a flashlight to see. Moving on, the next level is a boss fight. It's just to cross over, so you'll actually be fighting the Cloud. He is mostly just a mini boss fight that will be pretty easy to get around with because you kind of do need to beat him to get to the other side of the mountains. So just work like that. You'll keep going, hopping from side to side and defeating wherever you can. After defeating the boss level, you'll actually be going to the other side of the mountains and to a cave. The next level is also going to be a bit dark, but not as dark as the first level because the other one's just supposed to be straight darkness and the only thing you can see is with your flashlight. After that, you'll move up through the ladders into a whole new city, which is being terrorized by the crab. You can either pick to fight the crab or the mole, but either one, you're still fighting, alright? After those 2 boss fights, you fight the actual boss of the level, aka the Big Bird. That's not actually his name, I'm just giving him a little code name. I don't really have an exact name for him, but he's the boss level for this level, and yeah. When it came to making this whole world, I was a little bit confused, but luckily I figured some things out, and I do like the way how I took it. So here, let me talk about 2 of the levels that I really like and the bosses in this level. To start off with, I really do like this little town that I made for the beginning. I don't really know what would go into like this little frost area, so I thought that this, just having like this, was pretty good already. A little like village that is run by like, let's say, wolves. That's pretty interesting to me, so I don't want any humans or any like humanoid creatures living in these unless they're like specifically kinda weird. So the people in this village are named the Beast Folk. The humanoid creatures that live in this village are mostly just normal day-to-day furries, I guess, but they're just kinda in the snow. They have like snow related things. They go out for like water and stuff, and they pull their own stuff, get it, because they're coyotes or like wolves. Next, there is the City of Ice. I imagine that this city is just all like ice as well, and it's pretty like chilly, but kinda, I guess, advanced. This is where all like the penguins live. These penguins are like more sentient. They talk, they chat with you, they just chill with you if you really want. They do multiple human things, but it's more like in a city made out of ice. I wanted this area to have like a lot of different species of like, I guess, fish, frozen fish, or like penguins, or coyotes, or wolves, like random species that would live out in the snow. Which brings me to the bosses. The bosses, I wanted for the first one to be a snow golem. I think the snow golem like whole archetype is pretty cool in my opinion. I like golems, so I decided to have a snow golem with a bit of like ice features to him, like ice claws, ice spikes on his shoulders, stuff like that. And then you have the emperor penguin. This penguin is way too big, so they just kind of put a crown on him, and now he's the emperor penguin. If there's any problems, you kind of have to go through him. Finally, the final boss is the ginormous monkey on top of the mountains, aka a Japanese macaque. Okay, look, let me explain. He's kind of hot-headed and angry all the time, you know, aka blowing steam around like his head. So I wanted the, well, Japanese macaque's theme of going through like an onsen, or, well, you know, hot springs, and just chilling in them and steaming all around. So I wanted him to be angry as well. I imagine that the boss fight, he just kind of like throws a bunch of steam at you, trying to burn you, like really hot steam. So it's kind of like, you know, built into the whole, I guess, Japanese macaque aspect to it. After defeating him, you realize that there's nothing around except for a rocket ship. So we start off with the first level, or the first stage of the fight. He will be throwing fire. All of his attacks will be elemental based. So the first stage will be fire. If you get hit with the fire, you will get burned, which throughout the entire fight, you'll start losing HP, and at the very end, if you lose all of your HP, you die. Obviously, you have to restart and, well, restart the entire level. The second stage will actually be ice. So it'll go from fire to ice, and if you get hit with ice, you'll be frozen. Then, if you are frozen, you'll start getting frostbite, which will also in turn like make you take a little bit of damage every single time you don't like actually like hit him or do anything. And then the third stage will actually be thunder. Thunder will be mostly like paralyzing you. You'll take damage and then you'll get slower since you're paralyzed, and then your little like character will randomly stop midway through an action, let's say if you get hit with thunder. And then at the very end, finally, he'll have all three of the elements, and you have to just fight. You'll start getting hit with a bunch of different elements, so you have to like dodge, attack, you know, hit him like 3 different times, kind of like actual platformer game. I feel like that makes more sense for the final boss fight, at least, to have more of the platformer aspect than an RPG. So I wanted him to start being more platformer, where he, you know, gets hit 3 different times and then he's out. But I feel like there's so many different ways that you can take this. Absolute cinema. I know. This video took too long to make, so please like, subscribe, you know, everything. Sell out. Would you buy this game? Yes or no? Comment now. Bye. Okay, bye now.